Hi, so we're going to talk a little bit about some technique and things to be aware of during a titration lab. We're going to start with our Buret. This is a 50 milliliter Buret. That means that it holds as much volume as a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder, but because it's much thinner, it needs to be much longer to do that. It's graduated along its length into single milliliters and then into tenths of a milliliter. So that means that we should be able to measure to the hundredth of a milliliter by reading in between the lines. The bottom here is the stopcock. This is essentially just a way of letting things out of the Buret. So the Buret is sort of like a very long version of this, only it's upside down. So the numbers start from 0 at the top down to 50 at the bottom. And instead of being open on the top like this, it's got the stopcock that I can use to control how much liquid comes out. Okay? It goes into our Buret clamp, which is right here. We just pinch the two things together and put it in, and it holds it nice and steady. So, a couple of things about using the Buret before you do this lab. The first thing you need to be aware of is that into the Buret goes the titrant. And for this lab, the titrant is sodium hydroxide. So there will be a big carboy of sodium hydroxide, big jug with a spigot on it at the back of the room. And you'll need to get a beaker and take probably somewhere around 200 milliliters of the stuff back to your bench. Okay? Now, you're going to fill the Buret with titrant. But first you need to prepare the Buret, and that means you need to rinse the inside of it with the stuff that's going to be in there. So, take a little bit of the base. By the way, when you fill this thing, don't fill it in the clamp. Take it off the clamp and bring it down to below eye level so that you can see what you're doing. Make sure that the stopcock is closed. Now, there are two positions here. There's perpendicular to the Buret, that means it's closed, and if I turn it parallel like this, that means it's open. So you want to make sure that the stopcock is perpendicular to the Buret so that when you pour something in here, it doesn't go all over your shoes. Take a little of the base, pour some in, and then you'll gently, at the sink, tip and swirl the Buret to coat the inside of it with the base. Okay? Now it's ready to be filled for real. So we take our base, we go back, and we fill it up. Now we want to fill it to the top line, which is the 0 line. But it's really hard to hit that 0 line exactly. So what I recommend that you do is fill it up past the 0 line, and then open the stopcock and drain the base into your waste beaker. And that way you'll be able to hit it exactly. Okay? Then put your Buret into your clamp, like so, and the titrant is ready, and now it's time to prepare the Analyte. Now it's time to prepare the Analyte. The Analyte goes in an Erlenmeyer flask. And we use an Erlenmeyer flask because we can swirl without it splashing. And if it splashes, we're going to have some trouble because our concentration is going to change. So we're going to use the conical flask, the Erlenmeyer flask. We're going to use a new piece of glassware that you haven't seen before. This is called a volumetric pipette. This volumetric pipette, if you look, measures 10 milliliters. Okay? And it's a way of accurately measuring one volume, in this case 10 milliliters. And we're going to take some of our acid. We're going to put the pipette in there. We're going to use the thumb wheel on the side here to draw up 10 milliliters of acid. Now I don't know the concentration of this acid, because that's what I'm going to be doing my titration to figure out. I transfer that into my Erlenmeyer flask by pulling the trigger on the side of the pipetter. I don't push the plunger back down. And there's a reason that I don't push it back down, because if I push it back down, it will blow out the last little drop of acid that is stuck right now on the bottom of that pipette. And that drop of acid is accounted for by when they calibrated this. So my volume wouldn't be accurate if I push the plunger down, so I don't want to do that. Now that's not very much volume. So I'm going to add some distilled water, about 25 milliliters. Now it doesn't really matter how much I add, because at this point, the amount of moles of acid in there is not going to change. So whether or not I add water or not, I'm still going to have the same amount of acid in there, and it's not going to mess with it too much. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to give me some volume so that I can easily see my endpoint when I reach it. And the final thing I need to add to this reaction vessel is some indicator. And so I have a little bottle of phenolphthalein indicator. I'm going to put just about 2 or 3 drops in there, and I'll swirl it around a little bit to mix it. And now this is ready to go. Now I'm going to add slowly my titrant, my base, to my analyte. I'm going to do it slowly because I'm going to start to see the color change, and then the color will fade. And I want to be able to stop when I've reached just a very pale pink color. If I go too fast, I might overshoot. And if I overshoot, then this titration is worthless. So we're going to take a look at what it looks like when you reach the end point, so you know what to find.
So one of the things that will help you to control how fast the titrant flows out of here is if you grip the Buret by wrapping your hand around it. Instead of doing this on this side, wrap it around. You'll get a little bit more leverage between your fingers and thumbs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my base while swirling to my acid. And if you look carefully, you'll see that there's a little bit of pink color in there as the base gets added. And the more base I add, the longer that pink color kind of hangs around. But what I'm looking for here is for the pink color to be very, very pale and to hang around for at least a minute. Okay? And as the color starts to persist longer and longer, I'm going to go a little bit slower and not add very much at each time. Now, I might only add a couple of drops. I don't want to go over the end point, because if the color of the pink color gets too dark, that means that I've gone too far, and then this titration is useless. So I need to be able to control and to stop it. Now, this is the point where people start to get a little weird and worried that they're going to go too far. Oh my goodness, I know if I add one more drop, it's going to go too far. If that happens, just take the volume at this point. Read your volume, write it down, and then add your drop. And if it does go too far, well, then you've got a backup. You've got the volume you just took, and you'll be fine. Okay? So we're getting close to the end here. I can tell because the pink color is sticking around for quite a while now. So I'm going to go drop by drop. And probably each drop I add, right before I add it, I'm going to take a volume measurement just in case, so that if the next drop pushes me too far, I'll have a backup volume and I can use that as my volume. Okay? So I'm just adding one drop at a time. I'm looking for a very pale pink color that persists for at least a minute. And I'm almost there. I can tell just by how long this pink color is hanging around that it's very close to being done. And then I'll show you what it looks like if you go too far. So let's see if we can get a pale pink color. I think maybe the next drop or the drop after that is going to do it. So I would probably write down my volume right now, just in case. And I'll add one more drop, see if that does it. That does it. Well, it's fading. Nope, I think we can do one more. I would again write this new volume down. Oh, I think I went too far. Just a little too far. See, I dropped in 2 drops. It's not too bad. It's pale pink. You can see that. And it's fading a little bit. That's actually pretty good. That pale pink color, that's what I'm looking for. I might even add one more drop because it didn't quite last for an entire minute yet. So I'll see what happens if I add one more drop, see if we can get it to stick around as a pale pink color for about a minute. That's not too bad right there. That's a pretty good color. That's about what we're looking for. It's very pale. It's not really fading very quickly. That's your end point. Now, if you put in too much base, it's going to be a lot darker than that. I'll show you what it looks like. Just a couple more drops, and it gets very pink indeed. This is too far. So if you get to this point, you've just wasted your titration. Hopefully, you took the volume beforehand and you're able to use that. But that is way too dark. Okay, so if you want to take a look and back up again and take a look at the color pink that we're looking for, maybe go ahead and do that just so that you have an idea of what you're